There's something about old abandoned buildings that just fascinates me. Maybe it's the fact that they were once bustling with life, or maybe it's the mystery of what happened to the people who lived or worked there. Whatever the reason, I can't help but feel a sense of wonder and nostalgia when I see them. Today we are going to look at a forest that took back its town. But before we begin, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of our future videos. Also, be sure to stick around until the end, because we have a special treat for you guys. The town of Gulea was a small village in the Crumbles County in the west of Romania. It was home to just under 2,000 people and was nestled in a valley surrounded by lush green forests. It was a quiet and peaceful place, the kind of town where everyone knew everyone else, and the pace of life was slow and relaxing. The people of Gulea were proud of their town and the surrounding area. They had a strong sense of community, and they loved the natural beauty that surrounded them. They were also fiercely independent and self-sufficient. They didn't need much from the outside world, and they were happy to live their simple lives in their little corner of paradise. However, like many other towns in Romania, Gulea's population began to decline in the latter half of the 20th century. As the country's economy struggled and people began to look for better lives elsewhere, many of the young people left Gulea and never returned. With fewer and fewer people living in the town, the businesses began to close up shop and move away, leaving behind empty storefronts and a dwindling population. The once proud and independent people of Gulea were now struggling to keep their town afloat. But despite the challenges they faced, they refused to give up. They were determined to hold on to their way of life and keep their town alive. In the early 2000s, the people of Gulea had a glimmer of hope when a local businessman expressed interest in developing the town's economy. He saw the potential in Gulea, and he believed that he could help the town turn things around. He invested heavily in the town, setting up new businesses and creating jobs for the locals. For a while, it seemed like the businessman's investment was going to save the town. People began to return to Gulea, and the town's economy began to grow. However, the businessman's investment was not enough to save the town. And as the years went on, the population began to decline again. By 2015, only a few dozen people remained in Gulea. Most of the buildings in the town were abandoned, and the streets were filled with weeds and rubble. It was a sad state of affairs for the people who still lived there. They loved their town, and they wanted to see it thrive, but they didn't know what to do. In 2016, a group of environmental activists came to the town. They had heard about the plight of the people of Gulea, and they wanted to help. They had an idea to turn the abandoned buildings into homes for animals that had been injured or orphaned. The activists reached out to local veterinarians and animal welfare organizations, and they began to bring animals to the town. At first, it was a slow process. Only a few animals came to the town each month. But as word got out about the project, more and more animals began to arrive. Soon, the abandoned buildings were filled with animals, and the town was buzzing with activity. It wasn't long before the people of Gulea saw the benefits of this new venture. Not only were the animals being cared for, but the buildings in the town were being restored, and the town itself was becoming more lively. The people of Gulea were so grateful to the activists for helping them breathe new life into their town. They began to volunteer their time and energy to help take care of the animals. The town's economy began to improve as well. People began to visit the town to see the animals and to explore the restored buildings. Local businesses began to open up, and the town was once again becoming a hub of activity. And that is when the Romanian government stepped in. They were concerned about the growing number of animals in the town, and they wanted to make sure that they were being properly cared for. The government also wanted to ensure that the people of Gulea were not exploiting the situation for financial gain. After careful consideration, the government decided to intervene and take over the management of the town. They established a foundation to oversee the care of the animals and to ensure that the town was being run in the best interests of all parties involved. Today, the town of Gulea is a thriving community. The animals are well cared for, and the people of Guliepalia are proud of their town. The Romanian government has also recognized the efforts of the environmental activists who helped to revive the town. They have been awarded numerous prizes for their work, including the Order of the Star of Romania. Now, let's take a closer look at some of the most interesting places in town. The first stop on our tour is the town's main square. It is a large open space surrounded by a mix of old and new buildings. In the center of the square is a statue of a local hero who is revered by the townspeople. Around the square are a number of shops, cafes, and restaurants serving a variety of goods and services. The square is also home to the town's weekly market, where locals come to buy fresh produce and other goods. Our next stop is the town's historic church. It is a beautiful Gothic-style building that dates back to the 18th century. The church is a prominent landmark in the town and can be seen from many of the main streets. Inside the church is a number of beautiful stained glass windows depicting scenes from the Bible. Another interesting place in town is the old schoolhouse. It is a small stone building that was built in the early 20th century. The schoolhouse is now home to a museum dedicated to the history of education in the town. The museum features a number of old-school desks, books, and other artifacts. We now come to the town's most famous landmark, the clock tower. It is a tall stone tower that stands at the entrance to the town. The tower was built in the 19th century and is topped with a clock that can be seen from miles away. The clock tower is a popular spot for tourists to take photos. Our final stop on this tour is the town's cemetery. It is a peaceful place where the townspeople come to pay their respects to their loved ones. The cemetery is full of old graves dating back centuries. One of the most notable graves belongs to the town's founder. As you can see, Guliepalia is a town full of history and culture. From its beautiful church to its old schoolhouse and clock tower, there is something for everyone to enjoy. Whether you are interested in history, architecture, or simply want to experience the culture of Romania, Guliepalia is definitely worth a visit. If you have ever been to Guliepalia, we would love to hear about your experience in the comments below. And if you haven't been, then let us know why you would or wouldn't go. We hope you enjoyed learning about this fascinating town. Until next time, happy exploring.